All right, everybody, welcome back. We are here for the lessons from September 5th and September 6th here together. I'll put these together for you. Keep them in one YouTube video. Hopefully it goes short and sweet. So for Tuesday, when we got back after Labor Day, I started the question for the first, part of our content this year about what comes to mind when you hear the word gilded. How would you define it? Kind of had you write your answers down on the Bellinger questions. The term gilded refers to essentially what you see up here in the top right-hand corner with the pumpkins. It means something that is commonly referred to or common materials that are covered thinly with gold. So essentially gold plating. Now the key point of this is not gold all the way through, it's just gold on the outside. So it looks nice, but on the inside it's not what it truly seems. This is why Mark Twain came up with this phrase, known as the Gilded Age. Because America looked great, it was prosperous, but there were many, many Americans, poor and middle class Americans, who were just struggling to get by. They were barely existing in this country at this point. So Mark Twain, I guess, properly and appropriately comes up with the term and the phrase Gilded Age for many Americans living in the country, because a lot of the money that was being made that made America look so glamorous was made by these four individuals: John Rockefeller, Cornelius Vanderbilt, Andrew Carnegie, and J.P. Morgan. Now I have them, their wealths appearing up here today to show you kind of what they were worth back in the day, and then the bottom number is exactly what they would be worth in today's money. So you can kind of see that some of these guys are extremely, extremely wealthy. You're getting up to words of close to almost $1 trillion. Maybe $800 million between all these guys combined in today's money. And if you had to compare someone that we consider the richest man in the world today, we would look at Bill Gates. As you can see, his net worth is around today $86 billion. So, he doesn't even come close to these guys. But the problem is, and why this is known as the Gilded Age, while these guys are making all these huge sums of money, they're giving people jobs, they're giving, a lot of benefits to some individuals, the problem is they were obsessed with becoming the richest men in the world and competing against each other to make sure they had that title. Now, for the longest time, John D. Rockefeller had that title. Carnegie had it for some point. Rockefeller took it back. So it's really, back and forth game that's played between Rockefeller and Carnegie is who becomes the richest men in the world. History calls them the robber barons. I like to call them the titans of industry because it's pretty much how they made their money. Rockefeller and Carnegie especially came from nothing to create their businesses. Carnegie with steel and Rockefeller with Standard Oil. The reason why they made so much money is because they took advantage of the lower classes to make their fortunes. For instance, they would force their workers to work very long hours at very little pay. The politics in the country allowed this to happen. You're looking at workers working 10 to 12-hour days, 6 days a week. The one day that they do have, they pretty much relax the entire day. They don't have anything to do for themselves. Most of them have lots of money, that they could use, but they have to put it towards bills and to just payments that are unnecessary according to their own ideologies. But the politics allowed to happen, first off, because of laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means the government's going to have you hands off to politics, to business, and any sort of getting involved in business. The laissez-faire is not going to, is a policy which means that the government will not get involved in business. And Thomas Jefferson was a big proponent of this. The problem is, if government can be left unchecked, we see corruption occur, meaning politicians would look the other way on many illegal business and market dealings. Why? Because many of these robber barons or titans of industry would pay handsomely for these politicians to look the other way when these illegal business dealings took place. Today, we would, someone made an illegal deal, we would see that person on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., answering questions in front of Congress as to why you're so corrupt. This never happened back then because these guys had all the money in the world to pay politicians to keep them in office, to make sure that they won their elections, and they did a pretty good job ensuring that they kept their businesses intact and also making sure politicians that were corrupt to make sure that they stayed in office. So politics meant, it definitely happened that way. And also, they paid off media outlets as well to keep quiet. Now, the media was much smaller in terms of how, tightly knit they were. So the barons could pay off maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 newspapers across the country, and the rest of them would stay quiet. because many of the other newspapers got their stories from the larger ones. So if they paid to put different stories in, to put slander stories that were about scandal, and anytime they wanted to see something done their way, they would get the media involved, no doubt. The next day we looked at what does success look like to you. We got various answers about this, just basically opinion question. And then we moved on for the rest of the class to read a book called, or at least an excerpt from the book called The Jungle. The characters know in this book, you can see up the top here. You don't have to know those for any tests or anything. When you read through the excerpt that we did today, I might try to find that and put that up online. I believe it is on Canvas as we speak now. You can read through that. But it talks about a Lithuanian immigrant and laborer who struggles in Chicago working for the meatpacking industry. Now, I'm going to escape out of this PowerPoint here to show you kind of another one that I have looking at Upton Sinclair in the Jungle. Upton Sinclair spent probably a whole year, you want to call it undercover, but he spent a whole year in the shoes of a worker working in these meatpacking industries. And he not only saw the lives that many working poor had to go through and what they had to live, but he also looked at the horrible conditions in which our food was being prepared. So if we look through here, obviously this looks very, regimental, very clean. However, in many different factory scenarios, it was not the case. They would, throw, pigs on the floor, pick them up, and then put them in your packaged meat for the day. They would take leftover entrails that have been discarded, thrown away in the garbage, and then take them out of the garbage just to fill an order. And that garbage, just was not kept clean whatsoever. They didn't clean the floors, they didn't clean the walls. It was all about making sure you got the live animal from the stockyards through the butchers and out onto the and shipped out to be sold as meat for the consumer. So when you look at other plants here, definitely very low key, not very clean, not very well manicured or well maintained place. This is just one job only, and that's to butcher meat and get it to the customer. It didn't really matter how clean you did it. Here we have the stockyards where cows would drag in some of the manure that they were standing inside to the food plants, and some of that would get into the food. It just wasn't something that we would appreciate today. But the purpose of the book was not only just to show what the meatpacking plants were like. And by the way, when people started reading this book, it became a bestseller, and it forced the government to pass the Pure Food and Drug Act. And today we call that the Food and Drug Administration. So this is a huge book as a monumental feat to really put regulations on companies who process food for human consumption through ingestion, like by mouth, if they were to ingest it in that way. In fact, everything that we ingest today in our daily lives, whether it's medicine, whether it is food, it has to pass inspections from the Food and Drug Administration. If it doesn't, we cannot consume it. And if they force us to eat food that is not, it's not good for you, or if it's not fresh, then they will have some heavy fines. So they make sure that our quality standard of food is much better. But the livelihoods that these people lived in, that worked, they just couldn't catch a break. Anytime that they got through one situation, if it was by miracle, another one, poked its head out and was just very. It just became very difficult for people to live and just exist. It is not easy. So if you go onto Canvas, I'll show you up here on the page. Go back. Go to my Canvas page. You can scroll down here past all the videos, and you see the Reading of the Jungle, pages 5 through 8 only. And then that's what you can look at for these past 2 days to give you an idea of how many Americans were taken advantage of. All right. Tomorrow I'll look at both the video that we're going to look at tomorrow regarding the men who built America, and go over that. And also we're going to look at on Friday as well, September 8th, regarding the ways progressives decided to seek change based on what we read up here. Because people want to change. How are we going to get it? That's what a progressive is all about. All right. Until then, see you later.